That's not a good line. Your family. That's a phony political line. Okay. And remember, the industrial logic of this is they monetize access to Joe Biden. That's the family's business model. And now you're seeing it in living color. And not one person has refuted one email, not one text message, and not one photo. And later today on National Pulse, you're going to have the audio. Hunter Biden in his own voice. Hunter Biden in his own voice. And I got to tell you, you're starting off with the nice ones.
That's true.
You're starting off with the nice ones, but they get a little, how do I say? I don't say kinky. Did I say that? Did I say that? More later. Okay, I want to turn now back to Bill McGinley. Bill, walk us through the Supreme Court. Tell us about the back and forth. What's the tells of Roberts? And then I want you to give us how important glorious ACB is.
Sure. So from the decision last night, as typically happens in some of these decisions on important issues, the justices will actually fight it out in the footnotes. And so Justice Kavanaugh takes the very textualist view by saying, look, Article 2 of the United States Constitution vests the authority to prescribe the manner of elections in the state legislatures. Doesn't say the governor, doesn't say the Secretary of State, doesn't say the state courts, doesn't say the federal courts. It says the state legislatures. If there's going to be a change in the voting system in a state, it has to come from there. Kagan, on the other hand, takes on Kavanaugh by saying, hey, wait a minute, what we need to do is we need to be looking to protect as many votes as possible, and the federal courts have a role to play in looking at this to make sure that we're not disenfranchising people who otherwise should be eligible to vote. And she says the federal courts should actually take this activist role. So you have Kavanaugh, who has taken the strict interpretation of the founder's intent by saying, look, Article 2 is very clear. State legislatures have this authority. If you're not a state legislature, you don't get to change it. Courts get to interpret it, but you don't get to change it. Kagan says, on the liberal wing, says, no, wait a minute, the federal courts have a role. And then John Roberts kind of comes up and splits the middle. And what he says, because remember, he sided with the liberals in the Pennsylvania decision, he says, I agree with Justice Kavanaugh in terms of federal courts not rewriting the election laws. And he votes with the Kavanaugh wing and Gorsuch wing and Thomas and Alito on this Wisconsin case because it was an appeal from the federal courts. But he says, wait a minute, when it comes to an appeal from a state Supreme Court, I take a different view. And I think that their interpretations of their state constitutions and how they apply their election laws should be given some weight, crystallizing why he voted with the liberals in the Pennsylvania. So ACB's ascension as an associate justice on the United States Supreme Court is really a seismic event for this election, in the sense that if she adopts the Kavanaugh interpretation of the Constitution, meaning she strictly reads Article 2 and says, you can change laws, but it has to be through the legislative process performed by the state legislatures as opposed to the courts, this will basically pull back some of the victories that the Democrats have had if there's appeals to the Supreme Court. If she adopts the Roberts line of reasoning, appeals that the Supreme Court receives from the state Supreme Courts will probably be given more deference than appeals from the lower courts in the federal system. And so it's going to be interesting to see where she comes out. I think she's a strict textualist. I think ACB really is somebody who is going to be welcome on this court because she's going to restore the balance of power by making sure that the Supreme Court performs the function it was intended to do, and that is to interpret the laws, not make the laws, but also to ensure that the laws that are adopted comply with the Constitution and not try to rewrite them.
Let's go back to Pennsylvania and get down to you're saying, you've been telling me this for a while, the Democrats are concerned about Pennsylvania. Are they concerned about the timing of it? Are they concerned about this two envelope where you actually have to have, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking at polling, remember, we're not talking about who's going to vote on game day versus who's going to mail it in, because these mail-ins, and I'm hearing out of Pennsylvania, guys are talking 15 or 20% may not be certifiable. Walk us through where we stand right now with this situation in Pennsylvania, Bill McGinley.
Sure. So looking up the latest vote totals on U.S. election projection, which is a website, I hope I got that right, run by a professor out of Florida. as of this morning, he's reporting the total number of early votes and mail-in plus in-person is 1,712,007 votes. That breaks down 355,000 and change for Republicans and 1,193,000 and change for Democrats. Of that, 311 ballots have been rejected out of the mail-in pile. So if you look at the rejection, percentage, it's way below 15-20%. Most of them are being accepted. Now, they may not. Pennsylvania, I believe, is one of the states that's not going to start opening the outer envelopes until the close of the polls on Election Day. So that number will probably increase due to one of the things we've heard a lot about is the naked ballots, which are people who mail in their absentee ballot, don't include the inner security envelope, which is basically the affidavit that provides the election official with the information necessary to confirm that you are indeed a registered voter and to do the signature match and everything else. So, that number could go higher. But what this says is that a lot of people are voting, and it's a significant number with a very low rejection rate based on what they've received thus far, overwhelmingly